This video is another update to my series of videos called Trump Predicting the Antichrist. 1 month before Donald Trump won his first presidential election, I made a video which went relatively viral, claiming that he would win the election and then eventually become the biblical Antichrist, described in Revelation 13. My prediction that he would win the election obviously came true, but so far, there's no sign of him becoming the Antichrist. I actually hope it doesn't ever happen, because I like what he's been doing for our country. But my allegiance is to what Scripture says. Somebody will end up being the Antichrist. I think it'll be him. So this update is supposed to be about the events of the last 6 months since my last update. Not much has happened, right? Wrong. The whole world has been plunged into the nightmare known as COVID-19. And then, to make matters worse, the George Floyd death started a nationwide movement of rioting all over the country. The country has been in chaotic turmoil pretty much ever since my last update back in February. So, what's a president to do? Donald Trump has been expected to deal with all of these new problems, and because of the great political divide in our nation between the right and the left, there's absolutely no way for him to satisfy everyone. If the left hated Donald Trump before, they now have even more reasons to hate him. The fake news, such as CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, and CBS, have all been doubling down on their efforts to smear anything and everything that Trump says or does. After all, this is an election year. They only have a handful of months to sway the election their way. If you've never watched a different news network than the one you currently watch, you'd be amazed at the difference. If you watch Fox News all the time, like I do, switch over to CNN or MSNBC for a while, and just listen to the way they report things. If you only watch CNN, MSNBC, NBC, ABC, or CBS, I dare you to switch over to Fox News or even OAN, and just listen for a while. I'm sure you'll just think they're telling lies. But that's exactly what we claim CNN, MSNBC, and the rest are doing. So which network is really the liar? Well, that's where biblical discernment comes in. It's also been extremely helpful to be familiar with the alternative news reporting outside of CNN or Fox. You see, if you're getting all your news from just the CNN group of mass media, which includes MSNBC, NBC, ABC, and CBS, so I'm just going to use the term CNN to refer to all of them, then you're just getting part of the news, and it's all spun their way. You're not getting all the news, and the opinionated way that they report the news that they do give you is designed to sway your opinion about what it is they're reporting. When Joe Biden gives a speech, they only report the good parts that they like about the speech that fit their leftist politics, and praise him for everything bad he says about Trump. But they ignore the gaffes that he makes and spin them as being endearing. He's lovable Grandpa Joe. But if you're getting all your news from only Fox News, then you're being told about every gaffe that he supposedly makes and being warned that Joe's dangerously senile and certainly shouldn't have access to the nation's nuclear bombs. They'll spin every gaffe he makes as bad as they can, even the ones that aren't really gaffes. For instance, in one speech, he was explaining how he used to campaign long ago to be a senator. Therefore, he said that he would tell people then that he was a candidate for the U.S. Senate. But Fox News took that quote out of context and made it sound like Joe forgot what office he was currently running for. Sean Hannity also loves to make fun of Joe Biden when he tried to quote the Declaration of Independence. He started to say how all men and women are created and then said, you know, the thing. Sean Hannity likes to say that Joe was calling God the thing. But I think Joe was talking about the quote itself as the thing. So you see, you're getting spin on either side, CNN or Fox. Now, I'll quickly tell you that Fox is still way more reputable than CNN. The spins that I just described coming from Fox are not that big of a deal compared to what CNN does. But they're not the only news sources out there. Even Fox News viewers have the OAN network to fall back on. But you can find out a lot of the stuff that none of the TV networks will ever tell you on the internet. I'm quite sure that I will immediately get scoffed at by all sorts of people when I mention Alex Jones. I'm okay with that. I know why a lot of people scoff at him, because they've never really listened to him. Simple as that. Both CNN and Fox News have labeled him as just a crazy conspiracy theorist, as if that term automatically refutes anything he says. But what you probably don't know is that the term conspiracy theorist was actually coined by the CIA as a way to ridicule people who were blowing the whistle on actual conspiracies. If you don't believe in conspiracies, then you don't believe in the Bible, or almost everything any news network reports. People conspire all the time to do evil things. The right claims the left are conspiring against Trump, and the left complains the right is conspiring against Biden. Yet they both use the term conspiracy theorist. Even in the Bible, there are numerous stories of people conspiring to kill someone. The Pharisees conspired to kill Jesus. They also conspired to cover up the fact that his body disappeared. People conspire. It's just part of our fallen sinful nature. So if you don't think any of the conspiracy theories could be true, then I'm sorry, but you're just being very naive. Now, when you listen to the alternative news and find out through declassified documents all the various conspiracies that have actually happened, from Nero burning down Rome and blaming it on the Christians, to Hitler burning down the Reichstag building, the Gulf of Tonkin incident that put the USA into the Vietnam War, and even the stuff having to do with the Oklahoma City bombing and 9/11, you start to see how the TV news spins everything. Fox News is all about exposing the Obama conspiracy against the Trump campaign, but they'll never, ever expose anything about Bush and Cheney and 9/11. CNN would love to have everyone believe that Trump conspired with Russia and Ukraine, but they too would never, ever report a single thing about 9/11 being an inside job. So with the new COVID-19 pandemic and all the riots going on, I've gotten back into listening to the alternative news again to get their perspective on things, and it all ended up being what I expected. The whole pandemic is an Illuminati hoax designed to force the country into a pseudo-martial law and sway people against Trump. You've heard of the October surprise? Well, this is their 2020 surprise on a much grander scale. The Democrats are gullible enough to fall for all of it, because they hate Trump so much, and the Fox News Republicans are also getting tricked by it. The virus itself is real. I had it back in March. I took vitamin D and other supplements and it went away. My wife then got it too and did the same thing and it went away too. The regular flu was much worse when I had it years ago. COVID-19 is a real thing, but it's not nearly as bad as the media is making it sound. Almost all the deaths were very old people who were sick in some other way anyway. The regular flu kills a lot of people every year, but they never shut everything down over that. No, this hysteria is a media-driven psyop, a psychological operation. Stay home or you die. We stayed home, but it didn't go away. It turns out that over 60% of the people got the virus while at home. So what good did staying home do? At first they said, don't wear a mask. Now we are being mandated to wear masks. The real way to measure the pandemic would be by looking at the number of deaths. People can get sick and recover. That's not that big a deal. But death is irreversible. unless you're a repentant Christian. We've watched the death rate drop dramatically. Almost nobody is dying from COVID-19 anymore. Oh, they want you to think that people still are, but they're not. The numbers are being inflated. They keep telling us the number of cases is still rising, but that really doesn't matter. Is COVID-19 killing people? That's what really matters. A guy dies in a motorcycle accident, but they count it as a COVID-19 death. People die for all sorts of other reasons, but then they test them for COVID-19, and if they test positive, then they call it a COVID-19 death, even though they were asymptomatic, and the virus really had nothing to do with their death. The hospitals are being paid extra money for each COVID-19 diagnosis, and even the testing is unreliable. People have sent in unused tests, but they come back as testing positive. People who didn't even get tested are getting phone calls saying they tested positive. The COVID-19 pandemic is just an Illuminati hoax, designed to defeat Trump and put the New World Order back in power. Their agenda was running smoothly ever since they killed Kennedy, and then Trump came along and tipped over their apple cart. The only thing they want is political control again, and they'll do anything, no matter how ridiculous it is, to win the election. The new thing now is mail-in ballots. Can you believe this? They want to mail out ballots, blank ballots, and just trust the American people to not cheat in any way. Seriously? The ballots even say on the outside of the envelope whether they are a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot. You don't think a bunch of Democrat mail carriers are going to weed out the Republican ballots and only deliver the Democratic ones? You don't think the Democrats would steal blank ballots and fill them out voting for Biden? There's no honors system here. Fraud would be rampant if mail-in ballots were allowed. But that's the only way the Democrats could win. Let me now go on record once again as formally predicting that Donald Trump will again win the 2020 election. I predicted last time that it would be a landslide. People scoffed at me for that, but I still think it was a landslide. It's just that all the Democrat voter fraud made it look like Hillary won the popular vote. I don't think she really did. But there's no way of proving that. If Donald Trump does what he can to secure the election and stop all their attempts to steal the election through mail-in ballots and all their other methods of voter fraud, then it should easily be another landslide. People know that COVID-19 wasn't Trump's fault. They also know he did a decent job dealing with it despite the interference from Fauci. And people can see that our economy is bouncing back. But here's the bad news. The Democrats were so upset by Trump winning the first time. Just imagine how upset they'll be the second time. Someone will probably refuse to accept that they'll have to deal with Trump for another 4 years. Whether the Illuminati has anything to do with it or not, I think someone's going to finally try to remove Trump from office permanently. Impeachment didn't work. The election won't work. I hope it doesn't happen. But I think someone will try to JFK him. And if I'm right about Trump eventually becoming the Antichrist, then this is how it would happen. Their attempt won't kill him, but it will change him. Satan will enter him like Satan entered Judas Iscariot. He'll probably become bitter and start to question everything that he supposedly believes now as a Christian. Why would God allow this to happen to him? He's supposed to be like Cyrus, friend of Israel. Vote for Trump, people. I hope I'm wrong about him becoming the Antichrist. I really like him dismantling the Illuminati empire. But the Bible will be fulfilled one way or another, and this way makes the most sense to me.